Hello again.
Hi!
I wonder, could you tell me where we are?
I thought you knew all about it.
What does that thing do?
It increases density.
He knows I'm no good at my hands.
How can Earthlings have penetrated?
Pull to open.
Pull to open.
Yes, and what do you do?
Can they have learned the error of their ways? Are they now pacified and cooperative?
Flesh time.
What a fatuous remark.
Flesh tie?
It is all a problem of the flesh time.
Here we come.
I've heard that before.
Here come the drums!
Hello and welcome to Pull to Open, the only Doctor Who podcast that takes on the entire television program in a super tight, not at all distracted random order. I'm Pete Paschal.
And I'm Chris Taylor, and yes, welcome to Flesh Time, aka Pull to Open, in which we bounce around like a couple of demented early 80s punks.
Yeah, who cares what it is? I'm just jumping right in here. We're getting right to it. We don't have time for this welcome and back and forth and banter. We got to get right to what we're doing today.
Yes.
And the only way to do that is by talking about where we've been recently. So previously on Pull to Open, 3 stories ago, we were at a John Pertwee episode. It was the first one with Elizabeth Sladen as Sarah Jane Smith. Also the first adventure with the Sontarans and the first mention of Gallifrey. There were a lot of firsts. It was the first time we, Pull to Open, went to the Time Warrior.
Yes,
good times.
The first time. Are we going back? Don't take me back. No, don't take me back. But then the randomizer did take us back, all the way back, you might say, to the original TARDIS crew, and took us to the edge of destruction, which was pretty destructive to the whole process of watching Doctor Who and thinking that you're going to get something safe and familiar. My goodness.
That had an edge to it. It actually had 2, and they were both part of the scissors Susan was holding. There were some sharp edges in Edge of Destruction.
The largest scissors ever. I wonder if BBC Merchandise ever produced a pair of Susan's scissors. They would have sold just as well as the Daleks, I think, in 1964.
I'm going to wager a lot of Grotzits that there never was another appearance of scissors again in the program. Like, never. They never did another scissors. That did it. It was like, okay, we've done scissors. We can never top the scissors in Edge of Destruction. We're out.
That's right. You really can't see Disney Plus coming back with the scissors, But RTD, if you're listening, call us. We need a scissor-based episode. Anyway, we're spending too much time talking about scissors.
The scissors were fascinating because they stopped using scissors well into the year 5 billion.
Yeah,
somewhere along the line, you could just mentally cut things with your head, I guess, because there are no scissors in the adventure we call Gridlock. Set in that 5 billion year New Earth future. This is the last of that trilogy, but the only one of that trilogy in New Who that we've actually done.
Yeah, that's true. We're doing the trilogy the wrong way around, you might say, in reverse order. But yes, it's interesting that Edge of Destruction is basically about the TARDIS rocketing back, spoiler alert, to the beginnings of the solar system, possibly even the Big Bang. And then it bounced forward. The randomizer bounced forward to Gridlock and the 5 billion and change. And then, Pete, it's you asked, I believe, at the end of Gridlock, for something that would rocket us all the way back again to the beginning. You wanted more extreme time.
Is that what I asked for? I can never remember this part. We gotta lock that in. We did go back to something. We definitely went back to classic Who. Back to the very beginning of one person's adventure with the show, which is, of course, Mr. Peter Davison in his first ever filmed story, season 19, serial 2, 4 to Doomsday.
4 to Doomsday, aka Flesh Time. Yes, that's it. We're here. We've reached the inspiration for the 4 questions to Doomsday. We have still not found out for what to Doomsday it is. We'll discuss that. I haven't found that anywhere in the research on this story, but my goodness.
You didn't see that set of golf clubs in the airlock? That's what it's about. They just did a little misspelling in the title. Yeah,
that's right. It was going to be entirely golf themed. Then they made it entirely cricket themed. It was this whole sports thing. It's Doctor Who World of Sports that brought it to you by Peter Davison. And I gotta say, Pete, I mean, it's dark times here at Pultrope and Towers. The flesh time is a dark time right now in November. And also, the nights are drawing in. Like, you might be forgiven for just sort of feeling a bit gloomy at the time that we're recording this. This is probably going out in December. Who even knows? But, where it's going to be even gloomier. But I've got to say, I've said in the past the randomizer hates us, like it really wants us to, wants to torture us, etc. Sometimes literally, when we went to Heaven Sent recently, it stuck us in a torture chamber for 4 billion years. But this time, I've got to say, I really needed a good laugh. I really need, like, a good guffaw, a chuckle, lots of cackling even. I needed cackling. And oh boy, did I get it with this one. My God. I just want to pause and say thank you, Randomizer. I so needed that. Keep it coming.
Nice. I like that. We got your review right away. I feel like I'm detecting some creepy crawlies coming at me. But before we do that, I'm detecting something else coming at you, sir. And that is, of course, a whole bunch of emojis. A bunch of emojis.
Return to the Whomoji challenge.
Those emojis that will represent the title of a Doctor Who story. That's right. It is the Whomoji challenge. This is the part of the show where you know what I do. I torture Chris with these emojis. He guesses the title. Sometimes well, sometimes not well. And either way, it's a great time for somebody. Hardly ever him. But we'll figure it out. We'll figure something out. We got some good stuff here to figure out.
I got to say, can I give my answer in the form of a very well-crafted drawing?
Do you have a little whiteboard there?
Yeah, I could do a little pencil paper sketch and just produce this perfect sketch of the Doctor Who story that we're talking about.
I should master that because it would make it for an easier edit on my end.
Yeah, sketch out your emojis, please.
But no,
it's
you
easy.
Who are watching on YouTube will be blessed with the emojis appearing on screen. Everyone else, you just listen, picture them in your head, and here they come. There are 4 emojis. The first emoji is the rocket ship, the cartoon rocket ship.
Okay.
Second emoji, an explosion.
Oh.
Third emoji, the Roswell alien.
Okay. This could be about 10 million Doctor Who stories so far, but keep going.
The fourth emoji, the smiling devil.
Oh,
and that's
God.
it.
Okay.
That's all you get. Putting that in the chat.
The smiling devil, rocket ship alien. I mean, smiling devil, I'd obviously go for Impossible Planet Satan Pit, but
it is not the Impossible Planet in the Satan Pit.
Damn it! Okay, but yeah, the Roswell alien threw me off.
You got to go for 3 guesses, and then I'll give you a hint.
The demons.
Wrong.
I mean, come on. There are so many things.
All right, I'll give you 2. All you need was 2. I would say for the rocket emoji,
yes,
be literal.
Aliens on a spaceship. No, that's not a Doctor Who story. Literal rocket emoji. Literally a rocket. Literally, is it Ambassadors of Death?
It is not Ambassadors of Death.
Oh.
Good guess. I would say go even more literal on that rocket. Like, it's not just a spaceship. It is.
Yeah.
It looks like the rocket.
Okay. It looks like the rock. I mean, this sounds like we're talking classic Who, yes?
No.
Oh. Okay.
It's a new Who episode.
New Who episode with a rocket that looks like a classic 50s science fiction rocket.
That should do it for everyone listening now, so...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, including me in the future. I'm so sorry, me in the future. Like, you're going to be listening to this thinking, was this one of the ones where I did well? No, this is not one of the ones where you did well. I'm sorry. Looks like a regular rocket ship. Okay, no. I'm not. I'm going to need more of it. I'm sorry.
There's a lot going on in this episode. This is honestly the things they chose here. They could have chosen a whole other set of emojis for different storylines.
Okay. Such as.
I'm hesitant to give too many. Okay, well, no, I couldn't say that. That would completely give it away.
Oh God. All right. Are we talking before or after gridlock?
I'm going to say the explosion is something that doesn't really happen. Is kind of threatened that there's going to be a massive explosion of some kind. I mean, there's explosions in it. It's just like the climax of this is like there's going to be a devastating explosion that doesn't really happen.
Oh, it's the Star Beast.
It's the Star Beast.
Yes. Oh.
I thought the rocket would have given it away. I was fairly certain.
You know, what this is proving is that in my head, in my, my archive of New Who stories in my head, I have not yet added anything 14 or 15 based.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah.
Threw you off with the 14. It's too recent.
Yeah, and also, like, the Roswell alien versus, like, super cute alien. Like, a giant pair of eyes would have been better,
Yeah, it's hard, because I think you're kind of forced to combine those two and get the meat.
Yeah. Yes,
but
so this is the point in the show where I critique our audience for producing Whomoji that really threw me off. No, good job.
Well, thank you. That was Anurin on TikTok. Thank you, Anurin. It was awesome.
Thank you.
And you too can be like Anurin and torture Chris with some emojis that represent a Doctor Who story title. All you have to do is leave them on one of our socials, or the best possible way is to leave them on a review. And the best place to leave reviews, of course, is the Apple Podcasts app. So if you leave your Whomoji as either the title of the review or the body of the review, we'll get it either way. And by the way, if you leave your Whomoji there, you will immediately go to the front of the line. We will do that one next.
All right, so if you too want to interact with the show and you can't think of some Whomoji, just pull from the bottom of the screen. If you happen to be on Spotify, that's right, it's poll to open. You can rate the show that we are about to talk about. You can rate 4 to Doomsday, any one of the 7 ratings, which we'll explain at the end of the show. However, we do have some results now from previous polls. These are preliminary results because the polls remain open. And I believe, Pete, we have some results somewhere.
We do.
Locked deep in an archive.
That's right.
For the Time Warrior, for the Pertwee and Liz Sladen joint.
For all the firsts.
Yes.
The one with all the firsts. You know what? Coming in first in this particular story. I'll tell you what came in first. It was the Dalek.
Oh my God.
The Dalek,
that
it's unanimous.
Unanimous.
Everybody wanted it to be a good episode of Doctor Who, and it was, because that's what I thought.
Yeah, it was. And you said Dalek, I said Dalek zombie hybrid. I said that Robert Holmes was dancing right on that edge line between Laughing Stock and Great Doctor Who. So it's I'll take it. I'll take a full Dalek victory in that one. Right.
Yes, you will.
But you, but you can also support the show in other ways other than voting in our unanimous polls. You can also go on YouTube, like and subscribe. You can be a true companion. You can be a Viscount. You can give us a super thanks. You can follow us on Patreon. And even if you're in Spotify currently voting on your vote for 4 to Doomsday, you can also support us via Spotify. Right, Pete?
Well, yes. Tell us how you did that, by the way, and we'll include instructions on a future podcast. But
yeah, that's right.
Thank you all who support. Thank you all, true companions. All of you who get the podcast several days early at this point.
Yeah.
When you contribute at the true companion level, it's a great thing to do on YouTube, and especially a good place to experience Pull to Open, because then you get to see all of our stuff. My fun Davison poster back there, which is, of course,
nice.
Caves of Androzani from a recent Doctor Who magazine.
The very other end of Peter Davison.
That's right. It's my only Davison poster. I actually used to have more back in the day. when I was subscribing to Doctor Who. I wasn't subscribing. I was buying it at a comic store. Yeah. Anyway, digression. I'm going to find those posters someday. They're probably in the basement of my sister's place.
Well,
they'll return here.
I will remember to get a stick of celery before we do a Peter Davison story, and I will wear it throughout. But unfortunately, all of my celery has wilted. So therefore I cannot sense any poison gases.
All right, enough stalling with the vegetables, folks, because it is time to shift gears all the way into our commentary on Fort of Doomsday. But we have this fun little thing we got to do before we get there, and that's, of course, to summarize the plot of the story in record time. We allot 30 seconds for every Classic Who episode. This is a Peter Davison joint, so chances are it's 4 episodes, which this one is.
Yep.
So this gives the person summarizing a full 2 minutes to tell us what happened in Fort of Doomsday. Are you ready, Chris? That's you. That's who's doing it.
Oh, it's not me, is it? Yes. No, I only realized a few hours earlier that it was me, and I'm like, I'm going to make a huge mess of this, but that's fine. I have 2 minutes to Doomsday. There's so many things you can do in 2 minutes. Someone fetch me knitting.
You betcha. Well, we'll get you, I don't know, your strange bento box. And,
a vegan bento box.
Yeah, good times. We'll get you one of those. But alrighty, before that gets here, why don't we, which is to say you, summarize the official pull to open summary of Fort to Doomsday in 3, 2, 1, go.
So the Doctor, Nyssa, Tegan, and Adric land on this spacecraft. It's not Heathrow, but it is some spacecraft, and it's got 3 billion people. We later discover 3 billion members of this planet, and the ruler of this planet is Monarch, and he's here with his ministers, enlightenment and persuasion, and they're sort of weirded out by these visitors, these interlopers. There's also a monopticon, a camera that's
30 seconds.
Always looking at them, and they ask Tegan to draw pictures of what Earth fashions are like now, and then Enlightenment Persuasion decide to dress up exactly like that. And it turns out that there are a bunch of people on the spaceship. There's this Greek dude, there's the Mayan people, there's Aborigines, and there's a Chinese philosopher, and they're all there together, but they're all actually robots, and they have these entertainments, and it turns out the Monarch is coming to Earth to bring his people there, and also he wants to go back to the Big Bang simultaneously because he thinks he's God. Anyway, Adric thinks this is all a rather neat idea, so he's on Monarch's side for a bit, but then the Doctor sort of goes along with him, but then persuades him otherwise. And what they do right at the end, I'll just go straight to the end and then I'll go back and fill in details, is that they unleash this poison gas that Monarch has been preparing for the people of Earth, and it shrinks you down to the size of a grain of salt. So Monarch gets 30. A taste of his own medicine at the end. That's the ending of what happens. And this is after Tegan escapes. It takes the ship out of there after reading the TARDIS manual, and the Doctor tries to go and save her, like in just a space helmet. But he bounces a cricket ball, and then he actually gets the TARDIS, or maybe he doesn't. But anyway, so they get the TARDIS back, and they go off somewhere else. And before they do, Nyssa collapses for no reason at all.
Time.
How did I do?
You got it. You got it, dude. That was good.
I hope I brought some of the sense of humor. I wish I'd been able to remember names, like the name of the Greek dude, Bygone.
Yeah. Bygone.
That inexplicably,
bygone.
In a script full of jokes, as an attempted jokes, really bad joke, dad jokes. In Fortitude, a lot of things.
Yeah, go on.
No one at any point makes the joke that you have just made. Let bygones be bygones. Why? Why did they miss that? That's what I want to know.
It had to make room for the sodium chloride joke.
The sodium chloride joke.
So great for all the chemists in the audience. They were just yeah.
Yeah, Adric says pass the sodium chloride, and that's the joke because he means pass the salt, and it's just wow. I mean, this was such a cursed production in so many ways. I mean, not only did you have like literally everyone hated their role in this, right? Peter Davison was new, didn't know what the hell he was doing.
Oh yeah, I don't think he hated it. I mean, he was just trying things out, you know.
Matthew Waterhouse hated the fact that Adric was such an asshole in this, and yet he also found time to tell Peter Davison that he would never be as good as Tom Baker.
Wow. Okay.
Thereby repeating the same mistake that he made on the first day of shooting the Tom Baker. Janet Fielding was like, the script says that, you know, when the Aborigines speak, it was just gibberish in the script, and she's like, actually, that's pretty offensive, and got them to choose one of the 3,000 Aboriginal dialects
that Tegan happens to speak, right?
Yeah, the Tegan happens to speak. Tegan is a genius, by the way. We'll get to that. We'll get to the revealed genius of Tegan in this story. But yeah, it just no one was happy. Stafford Johns, who's the guy who played Monarch, was unhappy with his mask, even though he asked for latex.
Well, he was also in makeup, so he plays Monarch, and he was in makeup for like 5 hours. I don't know. They always exaggerate this. It was probably like a couple hours a day to get all that ready. But you know, there's attempts here like to do something pretty ambitious on a lot of levels. It's kind of like, you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of what I talked about with the Serenka conundrum. And I know I sort of, in Pull to Open Lore, I famously hailed that as perhaps the worst episode of Doctor Who. I'm not saying that about Four to Doomsday, just don't get me wrong. Not. But I am saying that here there are all the seeming ingredients of a Doctor Who episode that should add up to something pretty good, to which it kind of doesn't. You know, it's sort of like, oh, okay, they're just kind of wandered around things. There's frogs and androids and poison and big concepts.
I just want to pause and say that I failed to mention, I think, because I just everything turned white and I kind of blacked out, but I think during the TLDW, I failed to mention the entertainments, the soirees, the soirees as they are described, where we get possibly the least entertaining, the most turn me into an android and throw me out of the airlock kind of entertainments from all of these groups on Earth. From Earth, as they just do the same thing over and over again. The Mayan women do their dance. You know, and the Aborigines come in with their hunting ritual. What's funny, like they have to do all these entertainments live. Like they've done all this stuff to get faster than light travel or close to it, but they haven't invented on demand at Urbanka. Like, you know, just record some stuff. Like, you know, Monarch's like, no, dance for me. Obviously, I guess you could say that he's getting off on making his android workers do things for him, I suppose. I'm glad you said getting off on, because this is the Doctor Who that is stuffed with the most double entendre of any Doctor Who ever. I mean, not just the 10 million mentions of flesh time, which is the humans refer to the time before they were androids, and apparently Urbankans, which is the name of Monarch species, did this as well back in their flesh time. But everyone keeps saying flesh time, and it's just it's hilarious. And Monarch is like watching those screens. I
can almost see the posters for the orgy. It's like flesh time.
Flesh time.
Like, oh yeah.
And Monarch's just there in the chair, just watching the whole thing. He's like, yeah. There's a lot of moments where he's like just watching with extreme interest. There's lots of, you know, naked men dance around or semi-naked men dance around. Like it just 4 to Doomsday. This is like 4 seconds away from being a porn.
So the writer of this one, let me get the name right, just so I have it perfectly. It was Terrence Dudley, right? Yes, of course. Although I feel like whether it's official or unofficial, like there's some Chris Bidmead fingerprints here. Now I realize he wasn't technically script editor at this point. He had wanted a raise and he'd walked away because they didn't give him the money. But I feel like he's had some influence, and I'm talking specifically about some of the sci-fi concepts here. So there's this very quasi-realistic depiction of space travel where he's trying to go faster than light, but he's slowly but surely getting closer and closer, but he's not quite there. Now, they never really attack the time dilation there, which would have been kind of neat to do and sort of understand that, oh, the rest of the universe is going to be going it's going to look like the rest of the universe is aging when they're aging or whatever. You know what I mean? Like basically the time dilation would have been an interesting thing to take apart there. But that's kind of cool because usually you kind of doing stuff like, oh, Doctor Who doesn't really care whether it's intergalactic or interstellar and how fast things go or how they even go. It's just there. So I've kind of like that. There's the whole thing about population and overpopulation and androids replacing us. Which all of that is fine, you know. Those can all be good stories to talk about. So, like, I feel like there's a lot of hard sci-fi ideas bubbling up here. Nothing really it grabs a hold of the plot or the characters to make it truly compelling. But you know, there's again ambition. There's ambition to do some kind of cool sci-fi storytelling here, and then it sort of devolves into let's throw. Cricket balls and stuff, which honestly not bad. That is like you're kind of waiting for something to happen, and then that happens. You're like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, the cricket ball is sort of mentioned, briefly early on or shown early on. It is definitely Chekhov's cricket ball. I was kind of waiting for Chekhov's pencil because one of the ways he uses the pencil. What again at the end?
No, or, just at against the androids.
Yeah, against the android. So that's the way out of one of the cliffhangers. They use a pencil. And then Nyssa sort of meaningfully returns the pencil to the Doctor as if we're going to see it again. And we don't.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's his pencil.
So Chekhov's, here's your pencil, Doctor.
It's just good manners.
You. Yeah, it's just good manners. And I think it's like Enlightenment, or one of them says, oh, you can keep the pencil, Doctor. And I'm like, that's going to bite you in the ass. No,
and that's actually one of the few jokes that really works. I did like that one where he's like, give me that. The sonic, you can keep the pencil. Yes. I'll keep the sonic probe.
I love it. But yes, mentioning overpopulation reminds me of the fact that they're like... The whole jeopardy here is that 3 billion Bankans are, currently locked away in silicon chips, and the idea is that he's going to bring them back to Earth and populate Earth with them. The Doctor's like, 3 billion Earthlings plus 3 billion Bankans? Wow, that, basically that's a recipe for disaster, right? Which definitely gives you, like a lot of the story, gives you a very interesting insight into the 80s and what we thought was overpopulation then. We are now at a planet of nearly 8 billion people. So what we know now is that there was room for those 3 billion Urbankans. They could have come down just fine. We would have absorbed them. It would have been good. It's, it's all good. They would obviously be dressed in the latest fashions. Because Tegan would have,
they just pick up a Vogue and a GQ, and everyone, all the Urbankans are super swinging and styling.
So, and with 2 billion left over, like we are now more populated as a planet than for to Doomsday's worst nightmare. The evil plot succeeding plus 2 billion, right? That's how much the size of the planet has grown since then. It's kind of crazy. But I gotta say, just to return to Tegan and that sketch that she does, that there is a point in Fort of Doomsday where I started cackling so hard that it was kind of this, it was producing its own energy. It was a perpetual motion machine that I was just laughing uncontrollably almost for the entire rest of the story. And it was where they just sort of casually, they meet Monarch, Enlightenment, Persuasion. There's a few jokes about Heathrow and, why are you dressed like that? Oh, they wear safety pins down on Earth now. Doctor Who's first punk reference, by the way. And then they just happen to throw in, thumbs up for safety pins. They just happen to throw in this question to Tegan of like, oh, what do Earth people dress like now? And Tegan's like, you got a pencil and a piece of paper? And the action stops while Tegan draws the most amazing picture.
Yeah. She is a very good draftswoman.
They compliment her being a very good draftswoman. And indeed she is. She's produced this just excellent sketch
what happened to Tegan's bag of tricks of skills, right? She's like a artist. She speaks ancient Aborigine dialects.
Yes.
She's all around.
She can fly the TARDIS.
Exactly, without even being shown anything. This is like so it's funny. Like, I got to say, I guess I have a question for you after what I have to say.
Please.
Tegan is strange. She stands out. And I don't know if it's standout. You know what I mean? Like, everyone here is clearly, like, from minute one, just back from vacation, right? Like, nobody is ready. Everyone, it's like, I don't even know if they bothered to rehearse. It's like everyone's bumping around. And, I love Janet Fielding. I love the character of Tegan. I'm very much on record with that. But I will say, like, she's still very early in her run in her career here. And she's sort of been told to act a certain way, and some of the lines that she has, particularly in episode 1, where she's like, "Oh, I can catch a train." It's just, you just kind of like, that's a clunker. And when she later is panicking about what Monarch wants to do, she, like, he wants to turn everyone into robots and dispose of their bodies. Like, Bygone is a very graphic description of what happens to people when they get turned into robots. She panics. She's freaking out to the doctor. She starts freaking out to Adric. She says, I'm going to the TARDIS. And even though she is seemingly safe in the TARDIS, she still wants to pilot it away. And she does, right?
And she does.
So, but the thing is...
And she reads the frickin' manual, which the doctor has apparently never done.
Right. And all of that happens. But my question about it is this good for Tegan? Like, is this a good Tegan episode? I'd kind of say no, because the person we see here and the way she behaves does not align with someone who has just been through Logopolis and Castrovalva, in my opinion. She's already earned her TARDIS wings, so to speak, and her panicking there and essentially like running to the TARDIS and doing whatever, like, I don't like that. I would rather she was working with the doctor than kind of semi against him and sort of losing it.
Yes. We get the one mention of Auntie Vanessa, just to take us back to Logopolis, but nothing else. And it really is. I mean, I again was laughing so hard at so many things in this, but one thing that really got me laughing hard in the final episode is, I guess episode 3 or whenever it is that Tegan's flying the TARDIS.
Yeah, episode 3.
Like, we cut to her and she's basically like in tears and in the TARDIS and like trying to figure out how it works. Mm-hmm. And I think this is the key. This is what I'm headcanoning this. The only way to learn how to fly the TARDIS is to just have a breakdown and start crying while you're trying to learn it. You're just. It reminds me of like there's a great sort of graph that does the rounds on social media of like how projects get done. That like the first 2/3 of it is like, I'm lazy, I'm not doing any work, and then, the next little bit of it is, oh crap, the deadline's approaching, and then the final bit is all the work while crying. And basically, that's what Tegan does here. And also, didn't we see the TARDIS manual before? Wasn't Romana looking at it and it was like a giant hardback?
It was. So,
yes.
Okay, a few things, right? I think this came up, I forget which podcast this came up in recently in the TARDIS handbook. Might have been Edge of Destruction.
It was Edge of Destruction, yeah. This is why the Randomizer book is here, yeah.
Yeah, and so we see it in the Pirate Planet. We actually, in the episode previous to this one, in Castrovalva, there is a digital version called the Index File, but that turns out to be fake. There is no real digital TARDIS manual. That was all a deception.
And then, should have known that.
Spoiler. Sorry, everyone. And then this is actually, it's called the handbook. And not the manual. I mean, I guess maybe like this is the quick start guide. I don't know why they're these big tomes, because it is smaller, right? It's smaller than Romana's version. So maybe it's just the smaller print. I don't know. But
they should have just leaned into the comedy. Have her throw out the sort of the registration information, the warranty, the Sirius XM, leaflet that comes with the Type 40.
They really got to do the warranty thing at some point. That would be pretty awesome. But yeah, I just don't think it's a very good Tegan episode. And like moving on to the other companions. So first of all, like I watched this with Grace. She had a good time. She was very happy to see this TARDIS team. This is one of her favorites, and mine too, just to some extent. I think even though Adric can be annoying at times, and I think he's kind of annoying in this one.
Oh my god, he's an incel in this one.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts. Well, let's talk about Adric, right? Like,
yes,
Adric. He for Matthew Waterhouse, I do feel like he puts in a good performance, and he reads the character as it's written and tries to sort of find the motivation there. But everything Adric does makes no sense. Like, first of all, he's like jealous of Tegan getting the key. He makes a sexist comment, and then proceeds to do the thing he was just criticizing them about, like what women freaking out. He freaks out.
Yep.
And then he totally goes with Monarch's plan. He's like, I'm going to replace everyone with robots. He's like, that's great. And he's sincere. He's just like, I'm down for this. This is awesome. You're going to eliminate, poverty and death, basically. And you're going to program away sadness and evil and war. That sounds awesome. I mean, honestly, who it matches the poster in my room. I really admire Dr. Corby from Star Trek. He was my favorite guy. And I know that's a remote reference, and I'm just, I'm referencing obviously the classic series, the original series episode, What Are Little Girls Made Of? Where basically it's that premise. It's like, we're going to replace everyone with robots, which you might expect goes spectacularly wrong.
Who would have thought it? Yeah, look, like many an incel, Adric falls for airy promises from a dictator. Oh, sorry, totally avoiding politics here. But yes, he does say. Here's what he says to Tegan, and you're just amazed that this was actual Doctor Who dialogue. Like, this is worse than anything that was in the 60s. Doctor Who. They wouldn't have that. He says, Adric says, that's the trouble with women. Mindless, impatient, and bossy. And Tegan, yes, head in hands. You may well put your head in your hands. Tegan says, you chauvinist, I heard that. Adric says, you were meant to. Nissa says, I heard it too. You mean this? Holding up her book on math. Mindless? Well, yes, but you're not a woman. I'm not. No, you're only a girl. Which, even in the logic of what Adric is saying right there, makes no sense. Secondly, like just eject him from the TARDIS right there, Nissa. Tegan. He is damn lucky Tegan had not found the Type 40 manual at that point, or the Quick Start guide. Opening the doors in mid-flight. Hey, Nissa, hold on to the console, will you?
I gotta say that him referring to her as a girl, they're referred to as children by Monarch. It is like, wait a minute, how young are they supposed to be? I remember like this actually raised the eyebrow of Grace. She would kind of like turn to me like, children? Like, they don't look like children, like they look like
they're. Have you seen how well Tegan draws? It takes decades.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, I guess we're supposed to take from this era that Adric and Nissa are still essentially underage, which is, I guess, fine, but it's also like, I don't know. I don't want to get too far into it because they are technically orphans at this point, right? So
here's what I want to say about Adric and Nissa is that they have what can only be described as a technobabble deathmatch.
Yes.
They just go around the ship, and they're just sort of like describing stuff. Oh, that looks like a resonant stroboscope. Oh, yeah? Well, that's a graviton crystal detector. And you're like, what? Maybe these are the fingerprints of Chris Bidmead in this story, right?
Yeah. Well, Nissa always has to be like smug about it. Like, it's very primitive or it's very advanced. Nothing's like just right.
Yeah, we need the Goldilocks machine for Nissa.
Yeah. And then there's it's a very strange choice to end on technobabble. Like, literally the final line is, I forget what he says. Actually, I have it here. And this is right before Nissa like faints for no reason.
Yes.
And yes, except Nissa never repaired the time curve indicator, which is like, what?
Nissa.
When did that even? Like, what are you even talking about? Like, why would that be the final line, even though it's like technically Nissa, the Dr. Gasky Nissa, because she faints. But I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. Obviously, at this point in the show, this is a JNT thing. He was trying to have each serial lead into the next, and so this sets the stage for Kinda. where they had to write her out because there just wasn't enough lines for everybody. Which
well,
was
also because she was supposed to be written out at the end of Castrovalva, and Peter Davison put his foot down and said, "No, she is the one who is closest to my idea of the Doctor."
Right.
Yeah. So that was the reason for that one. But yeah, it definitely. I won't say it improved Kinder. We'll find out when we get there. But yeah, this may be too many companions. Although I thought, as a way to give everyone at least something to do, 4 to Doomsday is not bad.
Yeah. They kind of run around, even though a lot of what they do kind of makes little sense at times. And you do get this nice, like almost like a slap fight between Tegan and Adric, which I think pretty much sets the tone for their relationship after this, right? Because they kind of meet, don't have much interaction in Legopolis. I mean, they have a little, but then in Castrovalva, Adric's kind of off doing something else. I mean, he's captured by the Master. And so here they're all, together and passengers. And because they're, again, written in this way that doesn't make sense for any story, really, that Adric is super down with the evil plot, and Tegan is panicking in a way that a Doctor Who companion shouldn't be. They have this sort of clash, this very manufactured, contrived clash, which ends with Adric on the floor, having been, well, he is a child, let's remember.
Yeah.
But he hits his head on the way down, which is apparently why he's basically KO'd by Tegan.
Yeah. So he can say that. No, I just hit my head. It was just the way I fell. Yeah, there's so many things. I mean, the ambition of 4 to Doomsday is definitely clear. But my goodness, talk about the widest gap perhaps ever in Doctor Who between ambition and grasp. But there's some wonderful things here, like the whole the idea of trying to represent all of Earth culture and the coming back to Earth. Increasingly and working out how often the ship comes back to Earth by the identity of the peoples that they picked up every time. That stuff is brilliant. There's even a quote from Renoir, I believe, the filmmaker Renoir. Although I'm just not even smart enough to figure out where this is from, but apparently that's where it's from, where they talk about love. Someone says, "Oh, but what about love?" And what about love? Yeah. Very 80s. But
shared fantasies.
And then the response is the exchange of two fantasies, says Enlightenment, which is a very enlightening thing to say. Thank you, Enlightenment. And apparently a Renoir quote. So they're kind of shooting for the moon here, philosophically. They've got some actual philosophers in, and then it's just like, oh, they're androids. Like it's so like it wants to be up here. It wants to be big and important and thoughtful, and because it's the ability to realize that even within the script itself is so down here, it just ends up so wonderfully.
I will say from the guest cast, it comes close at times. So the most philosophical person, sort of by design, is Bygone, and he's played by Philip Locke, and I thought he was quite good. He talks. His part is basically exposition. He's constantly explaining Monarch, his plan, and who the androids are to the Doctor, and he makes it all interesting. And there's some dramatic moments, particularly when he reveals to the Doctor his true nature, and he's sort of taking off his tunic to reveal the circuitry underneath, and boy is he a robot. Like that is like metal stuff jutting out, Terminator level robot stuff, and he undoes his face and he's essentially a fembot, and the effects are really bad at this point. I mean, but what are you going to do? It's 1980s Doctor Who. But it's like, oh wow, and he pulls out the circuit board and he says, "This is me." So all of that was kind of cool.
Kind of cool, but isn't that like didn't we see that a lot in the Tom Baker era? People revealing themselves to be androids. My understanding is this is an advantage of watching it out of order, that it actually looks pretty cool. We haven't seen that kind of reveal for a while, but my understanding from people who watch this in order is that they're like, oh, not another android.
Well, but I think in this particular episode, you're invited to confront what that means. And is he alive? Is he a person? Who are these 3 billion or Bankins in storage? And then what is actually going to happen to the Doctor, Nyssa, and everyone if they submit themselves to it. So I think all of that is here. You know what I mean? It makes you sort of think about all these things on some level, even if as a story it doesn't make sense, because the first thing, well, maybe not the first thing, but one of the many things I think of in terms of plot holes is like, why are any of the androids active on the ship at any particular time? You know, why aren't they all just chips? And I guess you have to reconcile that Monarch is in flesh time and he wants buddies. He wants at least people to talk to and entertainment.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the reason.
He wants underlings more than buddies. Really, he
Right.
doesn't like people who say no to him. He's
Sure.
kind of a narcissistic asshole that way. Again, completely staying out of politics here. But I do want to highlight the fact.
See where you wanted to go there.
Yeah. I'm just going to let that speak for itself. You know, the randomizer knows why it took us here. Anyway, I just want to highlight the fact that representationally, this is actually really good. Like, you know, we're not that many years on from the Talons of Wen-Chiang when you had to have an Asian character, you had a British born, you know, a Caucasian actor. And here we have Lin Futu, which is, by the way, a made up Chinese Mandarin. He didn't actually exist. But he's played by Burt Kwok.
Yeah.
Kwok, who is awesome. If you've seen the Pink Panther movies, he's Kato. He was a legend in British TV. And it's kind of started around this time that he just, you know, he played so many roles. Even like in a comedy show, Harry Hill comedy shows in the 2000s, he played himself, like, you know, as Harry Hill's roommate. But it just, he's great here. You know, the fact that we get, you know, real actors of the real different, you know, ethnicities on Earth. And it feels groovy, man. It feels like it's the 80s and we're going to mention punks and we're going to mention, you know, how weird Heathrow is. And it's trying to have this very modern sensibility to it, which I appreciate, even if it does rather seem like a lot of this was conceived under that very other, unfortunately, very 80s thing, cocaine. Really does seem like half of this script with things like JNT came up with after a long bender.
Well, this actually wasn't even supposed to be the first one back. There was another story, I think it was called Project Zeta Sigma.
Yes,
but what had happened...
They replaced that with Castrovalva, yeah.
Right. I mean, basically, there were a whole pile of scripts for season 19, and what had happened is JNT basically, you know, buggered off on vacation and went to some conventions and let new script editor Anthony Root try to sort it out. And interestingly enough, Barry Letts, who isn't really credited, was an EP, was an executive producer at the show at this time, and kind of gave JNT a bit of a thrashing when he came back. Like, you can't just, you know, take off as the producer. You got to help the script editor figure this stuff out. But they did, and they sort of got Terrence Dudley to write For the Doomsday fairly quickly. And again, I'm not saying it worked, but they had a real show. And the most important thing, I think, is that they had a real show where Peter Davison could try out some things and be the Doctor, but also have a lot of support from the guest cast and his TARDIS crew, right? So I think that was good. And I think Davison is good in this. I think he is clearly trying some stuff out, but also he's not bouncing off the walls or whatever. He's kind of, you know, emotive, maybe even more sort of range, showing a little more range than even Tom Baker would normally. But you also, most importantly, what I want to highlight is you get hints of things that became his Doctor, became his signature moves. And I think they come out mostly in his dialogue with Monarch, and particularly towards the end, and the jig is kind of up and Monarch's calling him out on interfering with his plans. You get that great indignation that I think Peter Davison would come to show a lot to evil people, right? His Doctor. Be like just the way he says, "Oh, I would never dream of interfering with your monopticons." You can just taste the contempt that he has for this evil being. It's really good because he's also playing the I want to get along and explore and be friendly early on, right? But he still has that turn when he realizes evil's afoot. And I think that really works here and became a really great signature move for the Fifth Doctor.
Yeah, I don't think you would necessarily think, if you didn't know where this was in the running order, you might not think that this is Peter Davison's first. He seems assured. And I know he said a lot that at the time he was still figuring out who his doctor was. Obviously in Castrovalva, the next one he shot, he inserted a little bit of him acting like William Hartnell, him acting like Patrick Troughton, etc., etc.
Oh yeah, those little impressions he does early on.
Yeah.
Right.
But here he's just kind of, he feels very Davison Doctor. He's just sort of walking around, hands in pockets, kind of cheerily flashing that smile, it's kind of a winning smile, puts the hat over the, and maybe that's maybe you think that's a little Bakerish, but I don't know, it just feels really fresh and young and him. The only sort of flash of anger you get that I don't like is when he's trying to fly the TARDIS at the end, and he basically tells Tegan to shut up because you're spoiling my concentration. So that's what she gets for learning to fly the TARDIS.
Well, that's what she gets for trying to fly the TARDIS. I think he showed impressive restraint there. I got to disagree on this one, where she goes into his TARDIS, like messes with his stuff, nearly screws up everything. He nearly dies, right? Like more than once. Like he nearly gets his head chopped off, but then he's outside the ship and persuasion. No, it's they both actually come in there in that action sequence with the lasers and stuff. And he's just floating there and has no chance of surviving unless he had that cricket ball, which I would actually argue didn't feel like a Chekhov's gun when he first reveals it. It just feels like, oh, of course, he's dressed as a cricketer, and that's his thing. He's got a cricket ball. I didn't think, at least the first time I saw this, and maybe it's because I was a kid, but I don't know. I didn't think that was going to come out and save everybody at the end. So that was kind of clever.
By the way, the story of the cricketing outfit, as you may know, is that they were first going to put him in polo jodhpurs and make him look like a polo player, which I just love the idea of, like, if they'd gone with that, what would they be doing here? Like, he has to pull out a polo mallet as well. And just like whack his polo ball against the ship to get the gravitational force.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
but speaking of the TARDIS, we have them flying the TARDIS at the end. There's a few interesting things about the TARDIS here. First of all, Adric gets to be the new Susan and kind of TARDIS-splain the name
right
to everyone.
Yeah. You know what he says there too? It's the first. I don't know if it's the first. I don't think it is the first. But he mentions the TARDIS has a bathroom.
Yeah. He says it's got a power room, a bathroom. It's even got cloisters. I'm like, why are those the first three things you'd think of? Oh my God! It's got a bathroom.
Is the revelation. It's got a bathroom. Now, I will say, as I was saying, I was going to say it was the first mention. I don't think it's the first mention because I think in the Invasion of Time, which we've done, there is that bit in the first episode where Leela is swimming, and I think the Doctor and K9 reference it as the bathroom. Or at least the Doctor says something. I'd have to. Listeners, check me on this. But he does mention something like he's immersed in water. I'll find time for a bath or something. Maybe they didn't say bathroom, but it was something like that.
You're bringing up the thing that this is an essential US-UK difference, right? When Brits say the bathroom, sometimes, I mean, now in this day and age, I say yes, we're referring to the toilet, the WC, the lavatory. But we're more like in the 80s, you were more likely to say something like that, the loo.
The washroom.
Yes, or in my part of the north of England, the bog. It's what we'd refer. I don't know why we use that word, but anyway, we did. So the bathroom. I can see Adric as maybe he is actually referring to the swimming pool here.
He might be.
Yeah.
So there's also someone check me if this is the first mention, but they mention Artron energy, and it's quite a memorable exchange because the Doctor talks about the Artron energy potentially interfering with the TARDIS, which forced them to land on the ship. And Monarch's just confused, like, what energy is that? And then he has trouble explaining it, which I thought was pretty funny. Where he's like, yeah, only my professor at the academy could really explain this. I don't really know what kind of energy it is.
Someone's not winning the techno-babble deathmatch. But yeah, Artron energy. Just, for listeners who may not be familiar, who may not have owned a TARDIS recently, Pete, what is Artron energy?
Artron energy is one of the most consistent pieces of technobabble Doctor Who has had. And I believe this is the first real mention of it. But they ran with that ball in New Who. Oh my goodness. I think every Doctor in New Who at some point has mentioned Artron energy, and it's essentially Time Lord science-y energy is what we're supposed to sort of take from that it's a special kind of energy. The Time Lords have discovered it for some reason. It has something to do with time travel. And if you detect it and it's name checked, you can be sure time and time travel and perhaps Time Lords are all factoring in. So it's kind of like one of these giveaway technobabble things.
So the TARDIS also contains the Matrix,
and
sort of,
sorta, not really.
And the Eye of Orion or whatever it is.
No, it's the Eye of Harmony.
Harmony.
But that's only in the TV movie. And I think what you sort of have taken from the TV movie is that the TARDIS has a connection to the Eye of Harmony, and that's how TARDISes work. And
if Tegan had just left that manual on the console and just left it open to like a diagram, like here's where the Artron energy goes in, here's the connection to the Eye of Harmony, here's where you put the jumper cables. Sorry, I may have had to jumpstart a car recently as I was thinking of that on complicated diagrams.
Well, there's way more consistent and interesting stuff about Time Lord technology here than there is about regular human technology here, because they actually talk about the android circuits, which look very circuity. They look very human-made. And they do say something along the lines, actually not just along the lines, they actually give a statistic, and they say that the chips, the connections between them are 100 nanometers in width, which probably sounded really advanced in 1981. I'm just going to mention that current circuitry, so current chips, 5 nanometers, and I believe 3 nanometers are being worked on now, if not in deployment. Is basically the chip technology of 2024. So all you had to do was add about 40 plus years, and we're like way ahead of the Urbankins in terms of chip tech.
I love that. I love that that's one of the reasons, and it's a very early 80s reason to conquer Earth, is, we're coming here for the silicon. It's one of the most abundant elements. First of all, is it? Second, well, I guess from
not just the silicon though, they want our fabs. I mean, they want TSMC in Taiwan. Like they want our chip tech.
Yeah, I just love the idea of Monarch coming down to Earth, and like at first he goes into Intel, has a meeting with Andy Grove, schedule some meetings with NVIDIA, and just wow, how many nanometers?
Right. All right. Well, that's probably a good place to start talking about evil plots. But before we do that, we have to get to the first of our questions. And you know what those questions are, Chris.
Oh my God. We've reached the moment. This may be the apex of pull to open history. This exact moment. I want you to remember where you are, Pete, right now. You're in front of a microphone, me too. But I want you to remember where you are, dear listener. The moment that you heard for the one and only time for the story 4 to Doomsday, the 4 questions to Doomsday.
Wowzers.
And that's also the only time that I'm going to say it. Sorry, I stepped on your line, man.
No, I could tell the excitement. I was happy to concede that one to you. I will say, though, the first question is, why did the randomizer take us here?
Oh my God! Yeah, I didn't even realize the political connections until they slipped out of me. in the recording of this, but also, yes, good God, thank you for the laugh, Randomizer. The TARDIS manual connection to Edge of Destruction, I think that one is clear and obvious. I
had with Gridlock, I think that's a good example of sci-fi scale done right. Where you take something as conventional as traffic, you amplify it times a million with sci-fi sensibilities, you go to the year 5 billion, like you just sort of let it all go and try to mine that for what it's worth in the story you're telling. Whereas here, they're seemingly ambitious with some of this scale, but they don't really do much with it, right? They just kind of plop it there. They plop 3 billion androids. They plop the whole android concept, the faster than light concept, or getting close to light speed concept. And they sort of try to score points just by having these things there without actually going too far in them. Now, like I say, I think there is a little bit of stuff you're invited to think about with the androids, but you kind of want to see a certain sci-fi scale version of that, whatever it is, even if it's like in miniature or something. I don't, not that we're dying to see the end of Planet of the Daleks again with a bunch of like die-cast androids or whatever, but I mean, do something with it. Show some version of that scale. That said, I will give them points for that initial shot of the ship, which I thought was very Red Dwarf.
So I'll also mention, like, going back a little bit further than the most recent three, but of course the whole Heaven Sent thing that I was talking about, of like, if you think Heaven Sent is too dark, just imagine that the Doctor is actually inside a confession dial. So he's teeny tiny Doctor about the size of a grain of sand, which is exactly what the poison here is supposed to reduce you to. So, the randomizer clearly likes playing with that notion.
Yes.
And also, it just, like, we haven't really talked about, the fact that we're here at a Davison story for the first time since Arc of Infinity, and I love that the randomizer just pulls out a Davison whenever we're sort of feeling low, or like we've had too many choices that are like too dark or stark, or like, oh God, people trapped in traffic for 23 years and the face of Bo dies and the entire Senate has been wiped out, and oh God, this is dark and everyone's hooked on happy and all of this, and you just sometimes you just need a palate cleanser. So bring on a Davison, and it worked so well in context. So nice sequencing, randomizer.
Nice. So, speaking of poison and androids and going faster than light, it is time for the second question, and that is, what if any one of these evil plots had succeeded?
Okay, so the evil plot is Adric's to insult every single woman that he meets. What if it had succeeded? Then they would all loaded him onto a cyber ship and pointed him at the Earth.
I don't think he ever got a date in his life. So that evil plot definitely succeeded. Sorry, Matthew.
Adric.
Sorry. Poor Adric. So yeah, like I said, there are a number of like nonsensical evil plots here.
Yes.
I think the one we're supposed to be invited to critique is the replacing people with androids and repopulating the Earth. I think the light speed thing, again, it seems like, a bid me just threw it in, and it makes for a neat little line where Monarch thinks he's going to meet himself when he goes back in time. But I don't know if there's anything to that other than, after he ravages the Earth and does all the android stuff, right? So I think that's what we're talking about.
I'm confused. Is the evil plot to make us all tiny using this poison, or turn us into androids, or both?
Yeah.
4 plots to Doomsday, none of which interact very well. I mean, I gotta say, it will, shrink us down to a grain of salt. It's a lot easier to replace, teeny tiny android and the upkeep.
And if it's that small, what is the Doctor's space helmet gonna do? He'll just like, it's not even like a flat bottom. It just sort of wobbles there when he puts it on Monarch. You just crawl out from under it.
You know what we're going to discover in 2 or 3 RTD seasons' time is that Monarch did actually walk out, and he's been attaching himself to the TARDIS.
Oh, wow,
Went
yeah.
through the time vortex.
Sequel we never wanted to see.
Giant Sutek wrapped around the TARDIS. Teeny tiny Monarch just hanging on the bottom the whole way through the time
I would
vortex.
love to see that as some kind of Children in Need special short where he comes out and he's ready to like latch onto the TARDIS and carry out his evil plot, and Sutek just like eats him or something. Like he just completely,
Chomp.
no, dude, this is my ride. You get your own.
I mean, okay, so if the evil plot succeeds, lots of tiny people, and NVIDIA becomes a $1 trillion company many
4
years
years
early.
Yeah. I think that's fine. It doesn't seem like that Monarch's technology is that great compared to the space powers we've seen, the Daleks, the Cybermen, everybody else. He seems like he's kind of pathetic, really. And I honestly don't really get what this whole journey is for him. Like he's going back and forth to Earth, this specific planet, even though there's a galaxy full of planets and civilizations that he could go to. And I think they even say at one point he's actually in another galaxy, which doesn't make any sense because he's not going faster than light.
Yeah.
Right. So it's 5,000 years. Like that would get you, or whatever the thing is, that's 5,000 light years. That wouldn't even get you very far. Right. Like I certainly wouldn't go to another galaxy.
This is where they need, and it's not very often I say this, but this is where they needed Chris Bidmead.
There you go.
I'm going to say, no, that doesn't make any sense. Or we'll just throw in a reference to some sort of, wormhole between the galaxies. Only we won't call it a wormhole. We'll call it something very complicated.
Yeah, so my view, because of the low techness of it, I think humans do pretty well against the Urbankans. I think there's a war, certainly, but it's like the war between the land and the space.
That's brilliant. I love that. Thank you for that image. And RTD, if you're listening, call us. That's definitely a spin-off. But also, I love the idea that the only result is that you have 2 fabulous new catwalk models called Enlightenment and Persuasion, who just take the world by storm in their fabulous new outfits.
Nice. Cover of every magazine.
Exactly. And they're working with all the top fashion designers who are like, you mean if I just sketch it, you can just make it? Like, you can just appear like that? This is fantastic. Like, we'll do, 1,000 new outfits per show. And they're just on there, like, Right Said Fred, I'm Too Sexy is playing in the background as they're strolling on the catwalk, and they're like, this is fabulous green. And here's my safety pin look. This one was drawn by Tegan Javaka.
Ooh.
So Tegan becomes a fashion designer because honestly, if you can draw that well, Tegan, why are you a flight attendant?
Yeah, really. She'd be an illustrator.
What the hell, Tegan? Yeah. Like, you could be a pilot, first of all, if you can figure out a Type 40 in that amount of time while crying. And I love the idea that Tegan's just been held back by the inherent sexism of every occupation on Earth, and she's actually this genius, this polymath, and it just hasn't been discovered because Auntie Vanessa talked her into going on a plane.
There you go. That's the real evil plot succeeding. Tegan has been held back.
Yes. The real evil plot was the patriarchies all along.
Moving on to the third question. Very unpatriarchy question.
Yes.
We need to find out, where is the Clara Splinter? Clara Oswald, of course, splintered in time at the end of The Name of the Doctor. She is somewhere in every single Doctor Who story. Where is she in 4 to Doomsday?
You mean, apart from in the kitchens preparing amazing vegan food with avocado pears, not avocados, people. They're avocado pears. Let us avocado explain to you, Californians. Avocado pear. They say it like 2 or 3 times when the food comes out. Now, here's what I think. Clara needs to... So the soirees, the endless entertainments are essential to the plot because it's like when the Doctor and Bygone are only able to plot because of their cameras everywhere. They're only able to make their plot to defeat Monarch while the entertainment is going on, and Persuasion is fully distracted by this entertainment. So I think Clara is the one who is persuading Persuasion that these are really the most awesome entertainments. Like maybe she's Persuasion's previous girlfriend. Back on the planet, who's like, you know what? I want you to take me to these performances. Like, these are the only performances that I'm interested in. It's like, Aboriginal Earth culture and Mayan dances, and I really like the movie Spartacus. I want to see couple of oiled dudes dancing around with swords, and no chest hair. And just like stabbing each other. That would be awesome. Let's just see nothing but that on every single date for 4 years. That's what's called 4 to Doomsday. And so that's why these are the entertainments in the ship. He's the only person, Persuasion's the only person who actually thinks this is entertaining. This is why he wants to see it over and over again.
Oh, okay. Yeah, interesting. I have a couple possibilities here. One, perhaps she is a ex-girlfriend, but not of the one that you think of. Maybe she's an ex-girlfriend of Adric's back on Alzerius.
Oh, God.
And she's the one who jilted him, who has completely turned him into a male chauvinist pig.
Yes.
And also got him to think, you know what, this flesh time thing is lame. Girls are icky. I wish I was a robot. And so he sort of carried that with him all this time. And it sort of has gotten him into this this zone here where he's persuadable by Monarch, and therefore Monarch thinks he needs the Doctor for a while to placate the boy so he doesn't kill him right away.
I love the idea, by the way. You just made me realize that one thing we never saw in this era in the TARDIS that showed a lot of companion bedrooms was Adric's bedroom, right? We never saw.
No, we
Adric's
see it.
bed.
We see it when Turlo moves in.
Oh, okay. Well,
Don't you remember?
I'm thinking he'd probably cleaned it up a bit by then. Adric's bed, like, it would have been full of posters for punk bands and just torn through images of pin-up girls and just really terrible, lousy teenage bedroom. But anyway, yes, okay. So she turned Adric into an asshole. I mean, the other thing, just to not be so patriarchal that we're only saying that Clara can be people's girlfriends. Oh yes, what? she's the power behind the throne, don't you know?
Actually, that was actually my other thought, though. The other thing is maybe she's actually Enlightenment.
Oh.
Because she doesn't do anything for like 3 of the episodes. She's just sitting there giving Monarch like the little wisdom bits or something, and the only thing she ever does outside of walking around in her outfit at the end of episode 1 is taking on Adric and the Doctor in the airlock, but she's utterly incompetent at it. Adric somehow takes out both androids. With the help from the Doctor on the first one, but then rips out their circuits and throws them into the space and stuff. And they can't, she's even got a laser weapon. She can't take him out for some reason.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, she could also be the woman who got the Doctor interested in cricket, just to continue the girlfriend theme. But also, I mean, there's also, we have to explain how Tegan can fly the TARDIS, really. Is it really just that she just happened to whip through the Type 40 manual? Or is it that just off-screen Time Lady Clara is there in the TARDIS, secreted in the TARDIS, as we know she is pretty much throughout the entire Doctor's run? She's sort of the Sutek of the inner TARDIS, if you will. But she just pops out at this point. She's like, don't worry, Miss Javanka, I'm here to teach you how to fly this TARDIS. First of all, I want you to think of something really sad, because to interface with the telepathic circuits, you're going to have some really strong emotions. So you're actually going to need to cry in order to fly this machine. and she
Cool.
hands her this paperback version, like the only paperback version on the on the entire TARDIS of the quick start guide. She's like, just take a leaf through that. Don't worry. Or maybe she's given her some drugs from the 50th century that help you remember a book as you just flip through it and you're about to take a test. But I
Nice.
think that's
I can
actually
see
my
that.
favorite version. She'd
have to have one of those memory worms so that she never mentions
Yes.
her to the doctor. But that's fine. Touch the worm. You're done. You did a great job. Touch the worm.
Maybe
sounded
that's what
a
she
little
was
weird.
about to tell the doctor when he tells her to shut up when he's flying the TARDIS at the end. Thank goodness you're here, Doctor. There was this woman. She's called Clara, and I don't know what she was saying. But Tegan, quiet. Serving my concentration.
By the way, touch the worm is something you don't really want to say to companions, particularly the female ones. Boy, oh boy, we're getting really patriarchal here. Alrighty, it's time to get out of this question and into the final question, the ultimate question, the only question that I will talk about after I tell you to go to our website, pulltoopen.net, where you can subscribe to our newsletter for full notes on all of our randomly selected Doctor Who stories. It's a great place to better engage with the show. Feel free to comment and pass that website on to a friend. And don't forget to now pay attention to me when I get to the final question, the ultimate question, the only question that matters for 4 to Doomsday. What did we think of this story? The Pull to Open rating system has 7 ratings. There's the Dalek, which we give to a good episode of Doctor Who. The Ogron, which we give to an irredeemably bad episode of Doctor Who. The Professor Hater, which we give to a not so great episode, but hey, at least they tried something. The Viscount Banger, which we reserve for the best of the best. The Fixed Point in Time, which is a show beyond rating for reasons of nostalgia. The Lady Cassandra, which is a paper-thin plot, but hey, at least it looks good. Or the Zarbi episode that is so bad, it's actually kind of good.
Well, I gotta begin at the ending there, which seems appropriate for Who, and just say that this is the clearest cut case of a Zarbi that I've seen since Meglos, and because it's just so much fun. It is so much fun watching this, and it's one of those things where, I don't know, there are certain movies to me, like this, like Airplane is a classic example, where it's funnier because you haven't stopped laughing from the last joke, and you sort of get into this phase where you just can't stop laughing, and the jokes don't even need to be funny anymore. Like, that's kind of what's going on here, and lines that shouldn't necessarily be funny are just like full of like Mystery Science Theater brilliance. Like, there's one point where the Doctor says, the Aborigine, the Chinaman, and the Mayan, and me and my friend I was watching this with, all similar, and I can imagine anyone watching this at that point all said, "Walk into a bar." I mean,
awesome.
It's just so funny that it becomes funnier, and rewatching it makes it even funnier. So yeah, 100% Zarbi. You might think it's a little Professor Haterish because it had so much ambition they tried to do something, but no, fully fledged Zarbi. Maybe it's also wearing a little bit of tweed.
So I had a tough time with this one. It wasn't as clear cut for me as for you. So I was very haterish in thinking about they were trying something in terms of being almost an introductory episode for Davison, even though it's a second. There's a bit of Cassandra here, certainly, because the plot makes no sense, but it actually doesn't look terrible.
It does, and I gotta say, those
okay.
helmets, the helmets are amazing. They're badass. I want that helmet.
I want that on my cow.
That is definitely a space helmet for a cow, I gotta say. Just modify it.
So, and I see everything you're saying with the Zarbi. I gotta say, I had a lot better time talking about it with you than actually watching it. I think there is some fun stuff, and it's good to see the characters interact. But I do think the way they act, as funny as it is, kind of ruins what they should be. It's bad. Like, I don't like Tegan when she takes the TARDIS away. She's hysterical, and she shouldn't be. That's not who Tegan ends up being. Or, and I don't think it's who she is even at this point, even though, yes, she does have a few more freakouts, and she's always emotional. I don't like Adric. It's rare you ever like Adric, but it is like this one, they really go out of their way to make him like, like as we've said, kind of an incel and kind of like, Nyssa, I mean, she's there and she does some stuff, but this isn't really a great Nyssa episode either. And even though there are hints of Davison's, the character he would become, the Doctor who would become, not even hints. I mean, it's there. It's just, it's not the focus of Doctor Who, which it should be because it's called Doctor Who. It's like there should be more of the Doctor doing stuff here. So honestly, like I almost because it didn't come together for me, I'm a little mad at it. I'm calling this one an Ogron. I don't like it. I don't like it.
Oh, wow.
I'm harsh. I know I'm a little harsh on Davison sometimes because I do have a high expectations and stuff. And again, I had fun slamming the episode for it with you, or slamming it, like talking about it. But I don't think there's enough here that is that fun. Like, and it's not like I would want to slip this in again and just have a good time making fun of it.
Wow.
Maybe, I don't know. So I'm glad, but I'm going with it.
A Zabi, an Ogron, and a Mayan walk into a bar, and this is the result. Yeah, I was gonna say. So I was sort of tempted by the hater rating, but the fact that it wasn't that they learned what not to do here. It was almost that they learned what they were going to do for the rest of the Davison era. I mean, first of all, let's have a story called Enlightenment. Just name it after the character. Secondly, the whole thing with Terminus, right? With let's go back to the Big Bang. That's obviously a fruitful area. So it's kind of the opposite of Professor Hater. It's hey, we learned, we really did well here. Let's have more of this. So but I'm glad that I was able to bring up your experience of Fort of Doomsday and have some laughs about it because raising your Ogron to a Zabi is I think one of the kindest things that we can do for each other.
That's true. That's true. Maybe I'll revisit it again someday, but I doubt it. And in that case, maybe
maybe 4 days before Doomsday you can revisit it. So if we ever get a scheduled date for the apocalypse, just 4 Doctor Who stories before it. Watch Fort of Doomsday, be like, hey, I'm being totally appropriate finally with the title.
Well, until then, I'm going to bounce my cricket ball off my monitor here, grab it, and float all the way back into our time machine where we can activate our randomizer.
That's right. The randomizer has 4 Doomsday-filled components. No, actually, we've just reduced them to 2. It's easier to operate while crying. So that's what we're going to do. Peter's sitting at the controls of the crying codex. And that is the list of all Doctor Who stories in sequential order. He has the magic number of the number of Doctor Who stories we have left to go. And Pete, I remember that we left the 180s, which is why I asked for an 80s story. Oh boy, did I get one. Thank you, Randomizer, again for that. I only just remembered I did that. So what is the number? Are we down to 170 something?
Yes, we are. We are at 179.
Wow.
Just 79 more than the number of nanometers in the ship on Monarch ship. Okay, that's enough.
179 androids sitting on a wall. And what happens to those androids is that I go to random.org to choose between them. Random.org using atmospheric noise based on the number of abandoned ships heading towards Earth and the number of Tegan fashion sketches that are still up there in the upper atmosphere floating around from the abandoned ship. They so that's true randomness. It's not algorithmic randomness, which is a mere guess at a random number. This is truly random and feels very Doctor Who-ish. But before I plug into random.org, aka the executor, and ask it to bring us a number between 1 and 179, we like to issue some challenges to the randomizer. And I'm going to go first on this because I had such a good time laughing at this one. And and we're still in very dark times, and it's only going to get darker, and it's December, and we all need a break, and we all need a good laugh. And so I'm going to say, Randomizer, bring us the next, perhaps, even if there is somewhere in these 179, the most unintentionally funny Doctor Who story, like that's trying really hard to be really serious, but it's actually just laugh out loud funny. Give me more of that. Like let's up the level. Give me 5 to Doomsday.
Alrighty, well that's worthy. That's good. So listen, I was pretty tough on Davison, who is one of my favorite doctors just now. I'm just, the randomizer gets obsessed with certain doctors and, does some repeat visits. Take us to another Davison and make it good, randomizer. Give us some good Davison. There's plenty of good Davison left. I want to see it.
Oh, well, hopefully it can fulfill both of our requests by bringing us to a Davison that I find unintentionally hilarious, but that's also actually good. So let's see what we've got. Pete, if you give me a countdown, hit the generate button.
All right, in 4, 3, 2, 1.
112. We're in New Who.
My.
It did not listen to your request.
Planet of the Dead.
Ooh,
that's good.
That's taking us both to our Planet of bingo.
Getting close for sure.
Our Of the Dead bingo. Yeah. And our Easter bingo. Which is set at Easter.
Get those cards out, listeners. Yeah. We are toward the end of the Tennant era, right? Another special. This is good times.
Yeah,
all right.
I like it. Yeah. I like it. Not unintentionally hilarious, but I got to say, what happened to that bus in transit to the desert was unintentionally hilarious.
We're going to hear that. All about it next time, folks. Thank you so much for listening to Pull to Open. It's a podcast. Podcasts are great things to follow and subscribe. But the absolute best thing you can do to support a podcast like ours is to share it with a friend.
Yes.
Thank you.
I like that. By the way, you just created a new collective noun for podcast. Podcasters. Podcasties. Yes.
Yes. Gotta add syllables every now and then when you're speaking. It's just such a thing.
Indeed. Thank you, folks, Martin West.
Thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Martin West, for your music. It is always rocking as ever. We will see everybody next time when we head over to a planet via a bus, via a cat burglar, via some tasty Easter cream eggs.
Yeah, that's right. We will wait for a bus until 4 show up all at once. Destination Doomsday, and we'll see you at the bus stop. Bye, guys.